Call this meeting to order. I hope everybody is doing well and weren't affected by the windstorm over the weekend in this area too much. So welcome to meeting number 8 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Finance, and pursuant to the House of Commons Order of Reference adopted on December 2nd, 2021, the committee's meeting on Bill C-2, an act to provide further support in response to COVID-19. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of November 25th, 2021. Members are attending in person in the room and remotely using the Zoom application. The proceedings will be made available via the House of Commons website, so you are aware the webcast will always show the person speaking rather than the entirety of the committee. Today's meeting is also taking place in the webinar format. Webinars are for the public committee meetings and are available only to members, their staff, and witnesses. Members enter immediately as active participants. All functionalities for active participants remain the same. Staff will be non-active participants and can therefore only view the meeting in gallery view. I'd also like to take this opportunity to remind all participants to this meeting that screenshots or taking photos of your screen is not permitted. Given the ongoing pandemic situation and in the light of the recommendations from health authorities, as well as the directive of the Board of Internal Economy on October 19th, 2021, to remain healthy and safe, all those attending the meeting in person are to maintain a 2-meter physical distancing, must wear a non-medical mask when circulating in the room, and it is highly recommended that the mask be worn at all times, including when seated, must maintain proper hand hygiene by using the provided hand sanitizer at the room entrance. As the chair, I will be enforcing these measures for the duration of the meeting, and I thank the members in advance for their cooperation. To ensure an orderly meeting, I would like to outline a few rules to follow. Members and witnesses may speak in the official language of their choice. Interpretation services are available for this meeting. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either Floor, English, or French. If interpretation is lost, please inform me immediately and we will ensure that interpretation is properly restored before resuming the proceedings. The raised hand feature at the bottom of the screen can be used at any time if you wish to speak or alert the chair. For members participating in person, proceed as you usually would when the whole committee is meeting in person in a committee room. Keep in mind the Board of Internal Economy's guidelines for mask use and health protocols. Before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name. If you are on the video conference, please click on the microphone icon to unmute yourself. Those in the room, your microphone will be controlled as normal by the Proceedings and Verification Officer. When speaking, please speak slowly and clearly. When you're not speaking, your mic should be on mute. A reminder that all comments by members and witnesses should be addressed through the chair. With regard to a speaking list, the committee clerk and I do the best we can to consolidate the order of speaking for all members, whether they're participating virtually or in person. And it is now my pleasure to welcome our minister. Minister Rodriguez is with us here today. He is accompanied by Isabelle Mondo. Yes, Isabelle, and she's the Deputy Minister of Canadian Heritage, and David Dendoven. And David is the Assistant Deputy Minister, Strategic Policy, Planning and Corporate Affairs. So, Minister and officials, we thank you very much for making yourself available to the Finance Committee. And, Minister, now you will have the floor for your opening remarks. Minister Rodriguez.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, colleagues, good morning. First of all, congratulations on your respective elections and appointments to this important committee. Thank you also for inviting me today to discuss our government's support for our culture during the pandemic. As you know, the hundreds of thousands of workers in the sector, and that includes 158,000 professional artists, are essential to our economy and our society. And we in government have understood this for a long time. We've always been there and will always be there to support our arts, our culture, and heritage. I think to understand the magnitude of what has been achieved, you have to put it in the context of when we arrived in 2015. The cultural sector had just gone through a decade of cuts, and we said enough is enough. And that's what we told Canadians. With a Liberal government, our culture, our languages will be protected. That's what we did. As soon as we were elected in 2016, with Budget 2016, we started to reverse the cuts.
The first things we did was to reinvest $675 million in CBC Radio-Canada. that same year, we announced the largest increase to the Council for the Arts budget in history. We also invested in telefilm, in the Canada Media Fund, and I could go on and on, Mr. Chair, but long story short, we made the biggest reinvestment in our culture in the history of our country, basically. Now, when Canada began to feel the full impacts of COVID-19 in March 2020, the culture and heritage sectors were among the first and hardest hit. And many in the creative industry found themselves with little, or quite often with zero income. Et là, on a compris tout de suite qu'il fallait aider notre...
And we understood right away that we had to help the cultural world. It was urgent. There was not a second to lose. I'd like to take a moment now to thank all the employees of Canadian Heritage and the portfolio agencies. Thank you very much. Despite everything, despite the challenges that came with it, the pandemic, you were able to respond quickly.
With a $500 million emergency support fund for cultural, heritage, and sport organization, it was delivered in record time, and this protected many, many jobs. And the results speak for themselves. 77% of the people said it helped them stay in business, and 95% of them were satisfied with the speed of the program. L'équipe libérale a toujours été une...
The Liberal team has always been an ally of our cultural sector. We said we would invest, reinvest, and we did. We said we would not leave anyone behind during the pandemic, and we kept our word. We have done that. Now we're telling them that we will be there to help them hold on until the recovery is complete. The recovery is not yet complete, and people in our cultural community from coast to coast to coast know they can count on us. Because it must be said, with my colleague, the Minister of Finance's plan, our recovery is strong, but it won't be an equal recovery for everyone. Not everyone is benefiting equally, and I'm thinking of self-employed workers in the cultural sector in particular. And while the vast majority of Canadians have acted responsibly and gotten vaccinated, it will still take time for many sectors of the industry to return to pre-pandemic levels. There's still a gap there. That's why in the 2021 budget, we made a historic investment of $1.93 billion to help the arts and cultural sector benefit from the recovery. This is a major investment. We've created several emergency assistance programs to support our creators, our festivals, and our various institutions.
On and on. I don't think you want that. But let me focus on what's ahead of us. Alors, le 31 janvier.
On January 31st and February 1st, a summit will be held on the recovery of the arts and culture sector. The summit will focus on medium and long-term solutions and priorities. With the Deputy Prime Minister, I'm currently working on a key commitment in the Liberal plan that was presented to Canadians during the campaign. In fact, what we're going to set up, and this is what we said we'd do, we're going to set up a transition program that is tailor-made for the self-employed and independent workers in the industry. We're currently working with artists associations, guilds, unions, all the organizations in the sector to create this program as quickly as possible. What they're telling us, and I think they told you this at the committee, that they're telling us that this measure is extremely important. It's necessary. They want it to happen quickly, but they want it to be done right, and that's important. That's my biggest priority right now. And I must say that I'm relieved to hear my colleagues talk about it, because the Liberals were the only ones during the campaign to talk about transitional assistance for our self-employed in the sector. That worried me. Today, I'm relieved to see my colleagues asking the Liberal government to respect its own commitment. It shows that we're no longer alone, and we are going to do what we need to do. It's a good sign. The fact that we're no longer alone is a good sign for our workers and our culture, so I'd like to thank my colleagues for their enthusiasm and support for what we intend to do for culture, artists, and artisans. Today, I'd like us to take concrete action together.
In Bill C2, there are very important measures for arts and cultural sector. and for the hardest hits organization and the people in cultural sectors, these are essential measures to help them pay up to 75% of wages and rents. And this includes live performances and exhibits, museums, heritage sites, cinemas, festivals, and others. C2 also contains measures that will help these organizations hire more people. Mr. Chairs, our creators need it. They need the support provided in this bill right now. And I know my colleagues from all parties are serious about supporting workers in the cultural sectors, and I'm counting on them to make sure that Bill C2 move forward without any further delay. Alors, au nom de tous nos travailleurs de notre
So on behalf of all our workers and all our people who are holding up our culture, I'd ask my colleagues to pass C2 quickly. Those people have been there for us during the pandemic. They made us laugh. They made us cry sometimes and often think. And we have been there for them too, and now it's time to take the next step.
Merci beaucoup.
Well, thank you very much, Minister Rodriguez. This is a vital sector for our economy and for our country, and I know the members are looking forward to asking you questions based off your remarks and the ministry. So we are going to start with our first round, and we're starting with the Conservatives, and I believe it's Mr. Nader will be up for 6 minutes. Just Mr. Nader, I know you've probably stubbed on or been on this committee before, but just as we get to the 6 minutes, I will give you a marker just so you know you have about 30 seconds left in your timing. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister, for joining us this morning. It's great to see you at this committee, and hopefully you'll be to our Heritage Committee before too long as well. We would welcome the opportunity to see you there as well. I want to start by following up on the Emergency Support Fund for Cultural and Sport Organizations. Obviously, this was done very quickly, obviously due to the dire situation of the pandemic. A lot of that funding went through the Canada Council for the Arts. I'm curious to know what safeguards are in place and what accountability mechanisms are in place, and whether the department has engaged any internal or external review of that funding to ensure that it's meeting the goals and objectives that were set out in the program.
Well, thank you for the question, Mr. Nader. And you're right, we did move very quickly. Right at the beginning, we had a first $500 million, then another $281 million through the fall economic statement, and then the budget in 2021. So some of that was provided directly through Heritage, some, as you said, through the Canadian Council for the Arts, which is an organization that we're used to work with. It's part of our organization, so it's natural for us to work with them, and there are internal mechanisms as we work with them to follow the funding and the money.
And would you be able to share with the committee those mechanisms, those safeguards you have in place, so that we as a committee and other committees can be assured that that funding has gone where it's expected to go and that it's achieving its...
Absolutely, with pleasure.
Okay, we'll follow up on that offline. Certainly there's been a lot of talk within the cultural and arts industry about the former C10 and about your government's plans to reintroduce this at some point in the future. Originally, it was stated that it would be within the first 100 days. So I'm curious if that is still the timeline, whether your government plans to table this legislation within the first 100 days of this Parliament.
Well, as you know, it is a priority for the government. We mentioned it during the campaign, and we maintain that it is a priority. As you know, Mr. Nader, that law has not changed since the beginning of the 1990s. I still had black hair when we tabled and adopted that bill. We would go, and a lot of us would remember, we would go to Blockbuster to rent a VHS cassette that you would probably most time bring back too late and you pay a penalty on it. That was what happened at the time. So we have to modernize that because there are different systems, and we want to have one system in place that is fair for our Canadians, broadcasters, and also for the web giants. One system for all, and what we're saying to the web giants is if you participate in the system, you will contribute to the system. So yes, we will bring a bill on broadcasting quickly.
So within the first 100 days?
Very quickly.
Very quickly. Okay, thank you, Minister. And I do have to say, I probably still have late fees with Blockbuster that I haven't paid since high school, so I may single-handedly be responsible for their downfall. But one of the challenges, as you mentioned, rightfully so, this hasn't been updated in some time. And one of the challenges and concerns we've heard from digital-first creators is that they weren't properly consulted in the first C10, that those who primarily online, those primarily digital, were not consulted, were not brought into the process early enough or at all during the first process. Would you commit to ensuring that digital-first creators are part of that consultation, are part of that development process, so that the new C10 doesn't leave those people out, those creators who are primarily online and digital?
That's a very important point, and we are consulting very broadly. We are consulting people that at the time were opposed with that version of the bill. We're taking all of that into consideration. Because it's such a priority, it's been a priority for me to be consulting since day one, I would say. I don't even know how many people have consulted, but from all sides. And it's very important because that helps us understand exactly what is going on and how we can work on that bill, how we can table that new bill. But again, I'm sure you agree that it's a priority to modernize a law that has not been touched for 40 years. So.
Yeah, I was probably in elementary school when it was last reviewed. And to that end, again, recognizing that when it was originally created, when the Broadcasting Act was last reviewed, YouTube, TikTok, none of these entities existed. So there is a reality that times are changing. But the user-generated content side of things, obviously in the first iteration of C10 prior to committee, there was a clear exclusion for user-generated content, that it was excluded. Within the committee process, 4.1, it was amended, it was taken out, so that protection for user-generated content was excluded. Obviously, that created a lot of concerns within the community. Would you commit to ensuring that in the new C10, user-generated content, those people who are uploading, their videos directly to, a platform. I don't want to mention any particular platforms, but we all know the main platforms, whether that would be excluded within the C10.
Well, you have to wait till the bill is tabled, Mr. Nader, to know the details about the bill. What I can tell you is that it's coming soon. It's going to be a very good bill. I'm sure that you will be satisfied with many sections, if not all, of the bill. And again, it's so important. It's for our creators, right? It's the people that tell our stories, our own Canadian stories. So we have to modernize it because the rules have changed. We watch televisions and TV series on this. Before, it was a bit different. Television was a bit bigger and things were a bit more complicated. So we have to adapt to that, and through the Broadcasting Act, to the changes we want to make, I think it's going to reflect the 2021 reality.
Thank you, Mr. Rene. That's your time.
Thank you.
We are moving to the Liberals, and Ms. Zarowitz for 6 minutes.
In my riding of Davenport, I'm very blessed to have a very large. Yes.
Translation.
Oh, c'est dommage. On attend. Salut. Au revoir. Bonjour. Hello. Does it work? Oh, now it does. Okay. Can we start from the beginning? Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. So I just want to warmly welcome you, Minister. I want to also welcome your officials and thank the officials from the bottom of our hearts for the extraordinary work over the last couple of years. We know how hard you've worked, and we've been very appreciative of the supports you've provided to the artists and to the cultural sector. I will say to you that over the last, you've mentioned, Minister, that there was a platform commitment that we have made around transitional support for the COVID program. And I just want to read it out for everyone, just because I think it's important for us to say this. Implement a COVID-19 transitional support program to provide emergency relief to out-of-work artists, craftspeople, creators, and authors who are primarily self-employed or independent contractors. And I wanted to just read that out, just because it's important for us to indicate that that actually was in our platform, and that we've made a commitment to fulfill that, and that we were the only ones actually to go out and do that. And Minister, I know that you've indicated that you've started engaging with stakeholders on this, fulfilling this commitment. I've already had 2 roundtables with my artists, and most of them are very grassroots. And I wonder, Minister, if you can maybe talk about a little bit more about what your process will be in engaging with the arts community regarding these ongoing emergency supports.
Thank you very much for the question. And you're right, we have been engaging with them, and it's so important also to engage with them, because who am I, or who, to say, okay, this is exactly what you need, right? They know better than us what they need, what they're going through, and we know that, as I said, we've been there from day one, from 2015 to 2000, to the beginning of the pandemic. Then we came in with different programs, and then the budget in 2021 when we had almost $2 billion. But even after all that support, there are some people, mainly in the gig industry, the travailleurs autonomes, that are still suffering, or people that have no more venues where to sing and play, or to do what they do best. So we need that transitional program. We promised it in the platform. So I've been consulting, and I have here, Madam Zoritz, a list of, I don't even know how many people there are, but that have been working with them. I'm thinking of my friends from the bloc. We met also with l'UDA and different organizations in Quebec. We met with Astra. We met with ACTRA, the Creative Coalition also. So many others. So what we want to do is make sure that we work with these foundation guilds and unions so we're able to send the money directly to the people that need it.
I appreciate your response. And if I could also encourage you to make sure that you're also meeting with many of the grassroots organizations across the country as well. In my riding, we have tiny theaters and dance companies, and and symphonies, and all of them are extraordinary. And often their voices are not necessarily represented by the largest groups. So I hope I can get your commitment to also be engaging with them as well, Minister.
Absolutely, and I've been to your riding a few times. I had the chance to be invited by you when I was Minister of Heritage, my first time.
We're already planning our next trip,
I'm
Minister.
going to go there with pleasure.
Next trip.
And you're right, and sometimes small organizations, they do things that are absolutely incredible. Or small venues. I was speaking with my colleagues again from the bloc, and I was talking of a place we helped to finance the lighting system. There are 80 seats in that place. But it has a huge impact in the whole region. So, yes, we'll be consulting with them.
Thank you. And I was really pleased that you also, in your opening remarks, highlighted that C2 already also has a lot of supports for artists and those in the cultural sector. It was important for you to point that out, just because often when we have these debates in the House, people often forget there's actually quite a bit of support there. And my question to you is, why do you think it's important to have so many different funding streams for arts and culture? And how have we seen that these programs are meeting the needs of workers and organizations?
It's the last part, sorry, I didn't hear.
How have we seen that the programs that we're implementing are meeting the needs of workers and organizations?
Well, thank you for the question. We've seen it right away from the start, helping maintaining jobs. For example, what C2 is doing is still keep helping those industry with the wage subsidy, with the rent subsidy, and this applies to the cultural sector, one of the sectors that was the most hit by the pandemic. If you think about it, after the tourism sector, I think it's the cultural sector has been the hardest hit. So it's there through those programs to help the organizations, the associations, but we're trying to do also directly through my department is to go help the travailleurs autonomes. I'll never get it in English. Self-employed through direct funding, and this is what we're working at this moment with the foundations, the guilds, and unions.
Okay, and if I've one
time,
Well,
yes,
thank you so much,
we're
Mr.
moving.
Chair.
Thank you to the bloc, Monsieur Champeau.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Merci.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Minister, for being here today. And I also would like to thank your colleagues for their excellent work. Your colleagues at Canadian Heritage, their work is always appreciated, and we've heard nothing but good about your organization. You spoke earlier, Minister, about assistance programs for the cultural sector set up by the government at the beginning, from the very beginning of the pandemic. We carried out a study to determine how the pandemic affected the cultural sector in particular. And it turns out that the programs did help them, but the money did not trickle down to self-employed and independent workers. We helped venues, production companies, and so on, but the people behind the scenes did not really receive the money. The numbers are, in fact, alarming. That's why we have received a request that the programs be continued. We saw in Bill C2 that the cultural sector workers are not specifically covered by the bill. I'd like to know, Minister, and the question is also for the Deputy Minister, when did you realize that the cultural sector and their workers would not be protected by Bill C2? Answer. We always knew that there was a demand, a need in the cultural sector. What you need to know, Mr. Champoux, and you already know this actually, through different programs, such as the wage subsidy, we helped these artists because they were able to continue to work. You referred to self-employed workers, and we turned towards them in preparing a program. The programs helped organizations, and at the same time, as for self-employed workers, we don't need a specific program. We'll be setting up a program to directly help these self-employed workers. I'm glad to hear that, Minister, because we received the president of the Fondation des Artistes last week, as well as the head of the Union des Artistes. They talked about the urgent need for money among their members. Just to give you an idea of the frame of mind among the troops, we heard that artists were forced to withdraw their RSPs, to cash in their RSPs. And usually in the past, this was something that happened 2 or 3 times a year. Now it's every 2 weeks that self-employed workers are having to turn to their retirement funds that they have built up over the years to be able to survive. This is what we heard from the UDA. Last week, we talked about what the Minister of Arts and Culture in Quebec has done. That is, they provided funds to the foundation to help artists, the Fondation des Artistes. And there will be accountability. There will be a transparent mechanism to ensure that the money is distributed properly. Is this what you're aiming for? Is this what you want to set up, something like what's in Quebec already? Or do you have another model in mind? Answer. Thank you for the question, Mr. Champoux. I met the Union des Artistes last week, myself, and we had a long discussion, a 1-hour discussion specifically on this topic. It's important to work with community organizations. They were able to help the government of Quebec distribute the money. So I spoke to the Union des Artistes last week, people that you know well as well. We looked at the Quebec model. What's clear is that we are going to continue to work with the UDA and others. What we'd like is to work with them to explore the best way to get the money to the people who will benefit from it. That is self-employed workers. They know their people. And so that's something that we're going to explore. Question. Another question that we had, and this doesn't necessarily concern the urgent program that you're setting up. However, we would like to see that implemented as quickly as possible. Well, these self-employed workers, usual artists, do not qualify for employment insurance. That means that the people in the cultural sector need perhaps a permanent assistance program to make up for the fact that they're not eligible for employment insurance. Is this something that you could consider in the years to come? for artists going through rough periods? Answer. That's a very good question. It's something that should be talked about with my colleague, Minister Qualtrough, as well, who's in charge of employment insurance. It's true that the workers in the cultural sector are more vulnerable to ups and downs in the economy. We have this transitional funding for them in the program. Thank you.
Moving to Ms. Blaney. Welcome, Ms. Blaney, and the NDP for 6 minutes.
Well, thank you, Chair, and thank you to the Minister and his officials for being here today to talk about this very important issue. And I'd like to follow up a little bit on what my former colleague spoke about. We know that the arts and cultural and heritage sector represents about 673,000 jobs in the Canadian economy, and they're important jobs. The government has also really made it clear that C2 is the last set of pandemic income supports that they're going to be offering. So we know that the arts and culture sector is one of the last to recover. Do you know about how many arts and culture workers were still using the Canadian Recovery Benefit on October the 23rd?
Well, we know that, as you mentioned, before the pandemic, there were about 678,000 workers. It went down to about 606,000 workers. So there's 70,000 workers there less. Some of them, though, can benefit from the different programs in C2, and some of them are independent, les travailleurs autonomes, as I always say in French. And this what we're doing within Heritage is to help those travailleurs autonomes. But the answer is that the jobs that were not recuperated are 70,000.
Okay, so we know that the CRB is going to be replaced by the Canadian Worker Lockdown Benefit. However, a key difference in the programs is that to qualify for the CWLB, a region needs to be in lockdown as outlined by the criteria in the legislation. So do you know of any region in the country where workers, and that includes workers from the arts and culture sector, qualify for retroactive payment? So basically from the 24th of October to the present day under the CWLB?
I don't have an answer to the question. I can tell you that the program we're working on at this moment is independently of the region, independently if you're in lockdown or not. What we're doing at Heritage is to put in place a transitional program to help gig workers, to help self-employed workers, and that can be in any region that is in lockdown or not.
So if you don't have the specific answer to the question today, is there any way that we could get information from that in the future, specifically around that backlog and going back and seeing if it's paid retroactively? Okay, so we have a commitment. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
So, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I see a lot of gaps in the service, and I'm really worried about what that impact will be on this particular arts, cultural, and heritage sector. So I'm just wondering if you could talk to the committee about how your department was consulted about the structure of income supports in Bill C2 to best serve the workers in this particular industry.
Well, we had many discussions of finance, of course, to make sure that the cultural sector would be included. So this is why associations, groups, cultural businesses will have access, as you know, to what's provided by C2, the wage subsidy to 75%, the rent subsidy, and in any other events, in case of lockdown, the rest of C2. But we're going one step further internally, and you don't need legislation for that. We have the programs to do it. We'll go one step further to make sure that we're there for our independent workers.
So I hear that you're going to go one step further and hopefully, but we know that there are workers in the arts and culture sector who were on the CRB who are now cut off. And how are they expected to live? So right now there seems like you're having some ideas and plans about what that's going to be like, but the impact is today, and those workers today are being impacted. So I believe, and I think the whole of the NDP agree, that these are not people who do not want to work. It's the fact that there is that they work in an industry that is very slow to recover, and they're doing the best that they can. So they offer important services to our society, and people want to make sure that they're still there when COVID is over. So how are they expected to live during that interim if they can't access any of those programs anymore? And if you're still, as a department, in a place of thinking about it, what do we offer to those folks right now who are left in a huge financial lurch?
We're not just thinking about it. We're actively working on it. It's just that I cannot announce it today, but it's going to come very, very soon. Because, as you said, these people are doing extraordinary things. During the whole pandemic, I said it before, they make us laugh, sometimes cry, reflect all the time. And I always say, think of one day, just one day, without music, television, books, papers, and everything. It would be freaking boring, right? It would be like... So we've always been there for them, and we'll be there for them.
Okay, but it still doesn't answer the question, which is how do those people survive right now when they're waiting for this announcement? So how long will they have to wait for this announcement? Because financially they're struggling right now.
We're moving quickly, but through C2 you also have money that goes to the organizations, to cultural businesses that will be able to keep those people. So that is touching a lot of people in the cultural industry. And those that are not touched by this is the program that we're talking about that is coming very soon, very, very soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Minister. And Ms. Blaney, that's your time. We are moving, Minister, into round 2, and we are going to start off with the Conservatives for 5 minutes. Mr. McLean, you have the floor.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Minister Rodriguez, welcome to Finance Committee. The first question I have is about the accountability measures in this legislation we're talking about in relation to the CERB benefits that have gone out already being about 80% more than originally budgeted by the government. We've got an extension here of 7 months, allegedly $7.4 billion in extra spending, but that extension can actually be 9 months, so it'll be, let's call it 9 and change of excess spending, more spending that we're going to be doing to address these matters without any accountability mechanisms built around them, and indeed no definitions around some of the retrospective applications of how people are going to be applied here. And in addition, you've got the extension of time that this program is available until 2026, so an extra 2 years. So allegedly 7 months more of benefits, but 2 years more of applicability. Can you see that one might question why there's a lack of accountability in the definitions in this legislation?
Well, I'm sure those are some of the things that you discussed with the finance minister, because as heritage minister, I can tell you that we know the cultural industries that we're working with. We know the organizations that are receiving the money. We have this tradition of working with them, with also the mechanisms that exist for accountability. Sorry. So I don't see it as a problem for the cultural sector at all.
Okay, thank you, Minister. This bill has been rushed here. Let's accept that. You're a previous government House leader, so tell us how government makes a decision to hold Parliament back for months and then arrive with the legislation this important to the support it's supposed to give to key industries, and just hoping it can push it through Parliament and this committee with very little time to look at it and address how it actually can better serve the constituent parts it needs to meet. Tell us about the political calculus versus the accountability here.
Well, I don't think there's political strategy here. I think that because of the pandemic, we had to react quickly quite often. I remember you mentioned that I was House leader. I've negotiated things in urgent matters with Ms. Bergen, with Monsieur Deltel, and the same thing with Monsieur Terrien and with Peter Julian and others. And this is, in a way, the new reality where you're in a pandemic and you sometimes have to create very quickly programs that didn't exist before and maybe won't exist tomorrow. That's where we're in.
Thank you, Minister. I have one final question for you, so I might let you off a little early here. Given all the CERB fraud that we've seen and all the benefit fraud we've seen, extensive allegations of advisors abetting those activities, would you support an investigation of COVID relief payments in parts of the country where the payouts from the pandemic programming appear to be relatively extensive?
Well, I think that when the government puts those programs in place, they also put the accountability mechanisms in place. And doing something illegal is something illegal, and there's laws for that. And if someone did something that is wrong, then justice is there, and that person should pay the price. But for the rest, I think the government was extremely careful throughout the whole process to make sure that there was accountability for what we were doing, even if sometimes we had to do things fast collectively.
Would you support the investigation in
I'm
parts of the
not.
country?
I don't think it's up to me to answer that question. But what I say that is that if someone did something wrong, you go after that person.
But when it appears there's something going wrong based on where the payments have gone out disproportionately, would
Well,
you
I
support
can't
looking into that more thoroughly?
I can't comment on appearances or hypotheses or things like that. So that's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. McLean. We are moving now to the Liberals, and we've got Mr. Baker for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and Monsieur le Ministre, merci d'être ici avec nous aujourd'hui.
Thank you for being here with us today, Minister, to answer our questions. Before asking my question, I'd just like to follow up on what the Conservative colleague said.
Mr. McLean speaking about the fact that, lamenting once again at the committee that the government spent too much money in supporting Canadians, in support programs for Canadians. And I just can't help remind and underline for all colleagues and for the people watching at home of a few things. One is that this pandemic has been unpredictable. And I think the government's committed to be there for Canadians, to be there for businesses, to support them at their most during a global pandemic, during a crisis. And I think we've done what we require to have Canadians' backs. The other thing is I want to remind all colleagues that Mr. McLean and his colleagues voted for this funding, voted for the funding that provided the support programs for Canadians. And once again, his question, just like last week, suggests that the Conservatives believe, doesn't suggest, that it indicates clearly the Conservatives believe that the government spent too much to support Canadians, and that had the Conservatives been in power, they would not have supported Canadians through this crisis. That said, ma question pour vous, Monsieur le Ministre.
My question's for you, Minister. What have you heard from the sector and other organizations involved with regard to the support programs introduced since the beginning of the pandemic? Did they help develop the sector? Thank you. Indeed, Mr. Baker. We had a lot of discussion with the cultural sector before, during, and after these programs were implemented. What we've heard generally is that the programs, that is, were absolutely essential to ensure that jobs were maintained, in some cases to help with recovery, in some cases simply to be able to stay open. When you ask a population to stay home, to stay confined, to not meet up, to distance themselves from each other, the most impacted sector is the one that involves live performances, theater, other shows. So we implemented concrete measures to help all of these people. What we've heard is that these measures either helped maintain jobs or helped people get through this very difficult period, and will continue to help them. Question. Did they contribute to developing this sector? Answer. Yes, I think that's in fact one of the most important elements here. The Canadian Heritage Department is recognized for many things, but one thing it is exceptional at doing is consulting. We have a whole host of people that we know very well, and we would never say, we know better than you do. We don't say that to people who make a living from their art, from their music. We say, we are going to work together with you. We will put our expertise to your service to work together with you. Question. Although the pandemic is not yet over, it's encouraging to note that we can nonetheless focus on recuperating, if I can say it that way. You say that your government is keeping a government promise by holding a consultation at the beginning of next year with the arts community. Why now? What do you hope to accomplish? Answer. That's an excellent question. Canadian Heritage continued consultations throughout the pandemic. So I don't want to give the impression that this is just another consultation exercise. This summit, this 2-day summit, will be on the heels of a tour that I'm doing of the various regions. Why this summit? Well, because the world has changed completely, often for good. We can't go back. And the cultural sector has been majorly impacted by the pandemic. What are the structural changes, the other changes that the sector has had to adapt to that will not change? And how can we envision a future for the cultural sector in the medium and long term? Do I have more time?
Merci.
Thank you very much, Minister.
Merci. Now we'll move on to the block. Monsieur Champoux.
Mr. Champoux from the block again. Thank you, Chair. Minister, earlier in your opening comments, you said that your party was the only one that talked about the urgency and importance of maintaining the cultural sector. I have to correct you on that. That was one of our battle horses at the Bloc Québécois. It still is, so I could not let that comment go unnoticed. Now, as you said in your election campaign, and as we did too, about the cultural section, I think we can assume that with the end of the CRB, the Canadian Recovery Benefit, that you will realize it's essential that artists receive more money. This new benefit, will it be retroactive, this new assistance? Answer. It will take account of the situation, but let me just say something. There is nothing for transitional measures in your platform, as far as I can tell. Well, since we're talking about this program, can you give us an idea of what this transitional help will cost? Answer. In our program, in our platform, we put $50 million specifically for self-employed workers, self-employed and independent workers. There's a lot for the cultural sector, but for them specifically, and we're still working on it, but it should be around $50 million. Question. I have another question for you, if you don't mind, something that's been bothering me. We invited the FDA, the UDA from Quebec, here to the committee to talk about the Quebec culture. But of course, their problems are similar to problems across Canada in the culture. Do you sense that there is the same urgency in other provinces, the need for solutions? Should something be done in the rest of Canada as well? Answer. That's an excellent question. If you're a self-employed worker in Quebec City, Calgary, Vancouver, you have the same challenges. And we will be taking into account the needs of various people across the country, working with organizations such as the UDA and FDA in Quebec. I have a few more questions to ask you a question. I noticed my colleague talked about the modernization of the Broadcasting Act. Can I ask you when we will see this project, this bill, rather? We're very eager to see it back on the table. It will be soon. Thank you.
Ms. Blaney for 2.5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Chair. So, Minister, on Friday, the committee heard testimony from CRA officials that on an administrative level, it would be possible to have the CWLB apply to workers in the arts and culture industry regardless of whether or not there was a lockdown in place. Why did the government not pursue this avenue as a meaningful way to provide income support for workers in this sector?
Well, we decided on a series of measures to help the cultural sector, C2 being one of them, going directly to the organizations. And the other one is through consultation with the organization and also at the recommendation of a lot of those associations. I'm talking about ACTRA, I'm talking about LUDA and others, that saying that maybe working with them would be the best way to do it.
Okay, but I just want to put on the table again the reality that a lot of these folks lost all of their income on the 23rd of October. So it's a nice thing to consult, but if you can't pay your rent or feed yourself, it's very hard to have the energy to do that consultation. So I'm just wondering, now that you know that the CRA said very clearly administratively they can modify this to make it so that people that are living in this sector would be sort of a class of people, because we recognize that this is a particular group of people that are further behind in terms of being able to get up to speed because of the reality of COVID-19? Or will you work with the government to maybe make this work? Instead of asking these workers to keep waiting? Because right now what I'm hearing is you have a plan eventually, but it doesn't negate the fact that there are many people in this sector right now who, as of the 23rd of October, have not had any income and are really struggling to make ends meet.
We're doing this, Ms. Blaney, exactly for them. And Mr. Champoux made reference to this a bit earlier. I mean, these people, and UDA said it when they came here, some of them have to sell their RSP, some of them cannot pay their rent. This is exactly why we do it, and this is exactly for them that we're doing it, and we're very advanced with the program. We're doing it in collaboration with the guilds, the unions, and we'll be working with them to deliver it.
Thank you. That's the time. Thanks, Minister. Over to the Conservatives, Mr. Chambers, for 5 minutes.
Welcome, Minister. Nice to meet you. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Chair. Just before I get into questions, I'd like to just perhaps correct or at least point out a contradiction of my friend, Mr. Baker, in that on one hand, we're to believe that Conservatives had agreed to support all these measures at one point, in fact, voted for all of them, and on the other, to believe that we would have done nothing to support workers. But in fact, if you look at a track record in the Great Recession, ran the largest budget deficit the country had ever seen, and then worked incredibly hard to bring the country's finances back to balance within 5 years. So in that sense, Minister, you mentioned people breaking the law and that they should be pursued, but does it concern you that there seems to have not really been a lot of verification activities on whether people have broken the law? We had testimony last week that indicated there haven't been any post-payment verification audits on CERB, and very, very few on the wage subsidy. And we're not asking for any kind of medical certificates or a doctor's note for sickness benefits. So as a minister in this government, are you concerned that we're not actually trying to identify where there have been challenges or incorrect payments being made?
I think, well, Mr. Chairman, first, thank you for the question, and nice to meet you also. I think that more overall and general question probably has been discussed with my colleague at Finance and maybe my colleagues, Carla Qualtrough. But I can tell you, as far as the cultural world is and that includes a lot of money too. We do it through organizations, through channels that are like normal for us to use. We're used to work with them. We have a way of using, and it's full of mechanisms for accountability. So that's why we're quite confident of what we've been doing.
Thank you. You mentioned about encouraging people to get back into the workforce, but we also heard testimony last week about the severe labor shortage and challenges many stakeholders, in particular even in some of the industries we're talking about today, about finding people available to work once they open back up. But in C2, we don't really see much of anything with respect to labor shortages and trying to help these organizations find workers. Do you have any kind of comments on the labor shortage?
Well, I think labor shortage is a challenge. It was before the pandemic, and it still is in many industrialized countries, not only in Canada. One of the challenges we see, Mr. Chambers, in the cultural sector, and especially with the travailleurs autonomes, is that a lot of them, because they cannot live from what they do, their music or their writing, they go get another job. And too often, we lose them. They don't come back. And that's why we're putting in place this program to make sure that they stay. Mr. Poilievre, bonjour. That's why we put that in place for them to stay. It's fundamental that we're able to do that.
Thank you. We also had some information last week about the hiring recovery benefit. It has a very, very low take-up, about 10,000 approved applications. And, you know, if we're trying to convince people to re-enter the workforce. Should we be concerned in C2 or asking to extend the Canada Hiring Recovery Benefit Program, but we're extending a program that seems to not really be that effective?
Well, again, I mean, as the cultural sector is concerned, this is definitely going to help the organization, the cultural businesses, and others. And the part that is also necessary, which is not through C2, but through what we're doing now, is to help the gig workers, the independent workers, and that is absolutely necessary, and we're doing it right now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chambers. And
thank you, Mr.
Minister, we are going to the Liberals now for 5 minutes, and this is going to conclude the first section of our meeting here today. So the Liberals, we have Madame Châtel.
Bonjour, Monsieur le Ministre.
Hello, Minister, and welcome to the committee. It's a pleasure to see you this morning. Thank you also to your colleagues from Canadian Heritage who have indeed done a truly exceptional job throughout this pandemic. Thank you so much to them.
Quickly come back to some of my colleagues from the Conservative have mentioned, because, Minister, I don't want you to leave with the wrong impression here. They have called the witness FINTRAC, who in its testimony concluded that the standard that this government has developed over the year to ensure accountability and ensure that when there's something suspicious on any of our program, that there's check and balance and there's system to red flag and immediately go towards the investigation. So we heard that bank very early identify some suspicious transaction, which were by large very small numbers of payments, but then immediately it went to the FINTRAC, and then they launched an investigation, and the collaboration between FINTRAC and the Canada Revenue Agency went super well. So I just want you, Minister, to understand that our system and standard in place for all of our program was, with the witness, said that very good, supported by the Auditor General report that investigate those systems and concluded that the program we had in place, the money went to the right person, and also the abuse were really taken care of. So, je vais poser mes questions.
I'll ask my questions in French. As you know, the cultural and arts sector across Canada is very important. And of course, in my riding in Quebec as well, I'm delighted to hear that our programs truly helped the sector during the pandemic. I'm also interested to hear about this summit that will be organized in the new year. I understand there is this concern about money in the sector. You mentioned, Minister, the Bill C2, which will provide considerable help to organizations in the sector and employees as well, who will be able to continue to benefit. There is also, of course, the self-employed workers. I'm so happy to hear that they will receive something too. I've understood that if they are to receive the help, they will not need, that is, that they do not need a specific bill in order to be helped. Could you please tell us a bit more how they will be receiving this help?
Speaker, Mr. Chair.
You got a minute 45.
How much?
A minute and 45 seconds, Minister.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Ms. Châtel, for your question. Let me just repeat. I said earlier that the Liberal government has been there since the very beginning. Since 2015, we invested in CBC, Telefilm Canada, the Canada Council for the Arts, and $500 million was immediately set up as an emergency fund for the cultural sector. On November 30th, with the fall economic statement, over $200 million for the film industry and others. so that if ever they were shooting a film, they were covered if there was a shutdown. And then new money, 1.93 billion for the coming year. This is enormous. As for C2, it will help the organizations, cultural organizations, and businesses. We're not talking about self-employed in the C2 because Canadian Heritage has existing programs. We do not, therefore, need a specific bill for self-employed cultural and arts workers. We'll also continue to keep our election promises with consultations in the coming months. In other words, our cultural sector workers have never, ever been left out since the beginning of the pandemic.
On behalf of the committee and the members and all the staff and everyone here, we really appreciate your appearance. Thank you for your testimony, for your answers, and have a great day.
Well, thank you very much for the
Thank you.
invitation. Bye, guys. See you. Bye-bye.
Members, we're going to suspend right now just as we switch witnesses. Thank you. Everybody, and we have our second panel of witnesses, and with us today, and I believe they are all virtual, Clerk. Yeah, everybody, all our witnesses for the second panel are virtual. From the Office of the Auditor General of Canada, Karen Hogan is with us, and thank you, Ms. Hogan, and in really short order, being able to make it here out to our committee. We appreciate that. Accompanied by Philip Legoff, Principal. And representing the Canadian Labour Congress, we've got Bia Brusque, and she's the president, although Bia is having some trouble, I believe, some technical difficulties with her sound, so we'll see if that works or not. If it doesn't work for the interpreters, it may not be possible to have Bia today. And no strangers to our committee from the Canada Revenue Agency, who we heard from just a couple of meetings ago. We've got Frank Vermaiden, Assistant Commissioner, Assistant Benefit and Service Branch, Mark Lemieux, Assistant Commissioner, Collections and Verification Branch, Kathy Hawara, Assistant Commissioner, Compliance Programs Branch, and Yannick Caron, Chief Financial Officer and Assistant Commissioner, Finance and Administration Branch. Each of the organizations will have a 5-minute opening statement, and we'll start with the Auditor General. So, Ms. Hogan, for 5 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. I wish to acknowledge that the lands on which we are gathered are part of the traditional unceded territory of the Anishinaabe people. Thank you for this opportunity to contribute to the committee's study of Bill C-2, an act to provide further support in response to COVID-19. I'm happy to discuss our audit reports, including the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy and the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, which were tabled in the House of Commons on March 25th. Joining me today is Philippe Legoff, who is the principal responsible for the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy audit. Our audit of the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy program focused on whether the Department of Finance Canada provided analysis on the program and whether the Canada Revenue Agency limited abuse by establishing appropriate controls in its administration of the program. Overall, we found the Department of Finance Canada and the Canada Revenue Agency worked together within short time frames to support the development and implementation of the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy. The design and rollout of the subsidy highlighted pre-existing weaknesses in the CRA's systems, approaches, and data. One of the weaknesses is related to the lack of up-to-date tax data, which meant that the agency did not have all the relevant information for assessing the applications before issuing payments. This revenue information would have allowed the agency to validate the reasonableness of the revenue drop that was declared by applicants. To prioritize issuing payments quickly, the CRA decided to not implement certain controls that it could have used to validate the reasonableness of subsidy applications. For example, the agency decided that it would not ask for social insurance numbers of employees, although this information could have helped prevent the doubling up of applications for financial support. The limitations of the agency's information technology systems affected its ability to perform some prepayment validations, as did the absence of complete and up-to-date tax information. As a result, the agency will have to perform more post-payment verification work.
Report on the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. This audit focused on the analysis carried out by Employment and Social Development Canada and the Department of Finance in the design of the benefit. It also examined whether Employment and Social Development Canada and the Canada Revenue Agency designed mechanisms so that the benefit would support eligible workers who suffered a loss of income for reasons related to the COVID-19 pandemic. Working within a short time frame, Employment and Social Development Canada and the Department of Finance Canada supported the design of the benefit to quickly deliver support to workers who lost income because of COVID-19. The department and the agency made an early decision to focus on post-payment controls to simplify the process and expedite issuing benefit payments. The department and the agency introduced additional controls once the benefit was rolled out. Based on our audit work on the original design of the two programs, both will need to rely heavily on post-payment verification, which will be time-consuming and costly. The post-payment work on these two programs was expected to be the subject of an audit from my office to begin in early 2022. However, we have been informed by the Canada Revenue Agency that it has deferred or delayed its work and that it is highly unlikely that a significant amount of post-payment work will be completed by 2023. Given that there will be little for us to audit, we have postponed our work. Mr. Chair, this concludes my opening remarks. We would be pleased to answer any questions the committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hogan. We appreciate that. And so my understanding is the Canada Revenue Agency that appeared before our committee just last week will not be making an opening statement. They'll just be going right into questions, members. And from the Canadian Labour Congress, we're going to try. I understand also, Ms. Brusque, you are on the phone now and connected to our committee. We just have to see if the interpreters can work with the sound, if that's possible. So, Ms. Brusque, if you can hear me, you have the floor for up to 5 minutes. Ms. Brusque? No, clerk, I don't think. I think we've lost Ms. Brusque from the Canadian Labour Congress. So, witnesses and members. So we're entering into our first round. It's 6 minutes of questions for each of the members. We are going to start off with the Conservatives and Mr. Poilievre for 6 minutes.
Yes, my question is for the Auditor General. As you know, Financial Transactions and Reports Analysis Centre of Canada has reported that people not living in Canada received the CERB. People who were engaged in illegal and suspicious financial activity also received the CERB. Some people received more than one CERB deposit in less than a week, even though it was supposed to be strictly a weekly payment. That scammers used personal identity information to apply for the CERB, and the list goes on. Now, the department tells us they have not gone back and verified whether the people who got CERB money were eligible for that money. Your job was to audit whether or not they followed their rules in ensuring that only people entitled to the money got it. Today, you're telling us you're not going to do your job until 2023 or later because the department has not done its job. Have I accurately characterized your testimony? If not, please correct me.
You're referring in your question to post-payment verification work, and an audit is of value when there is information and data to audit, and hence without post-payment work having yet begun, it is difficult for us to go in and see whether or not the mechanisms put in place by the Canada Revenue Agency to identify if payments had been made in error and recover them if needed is impossible to do until that work is done.
Right, so they sent out the money. They're not verifying if the people who got it should have. And so you're saying, well, because they're not doing any verification, there's no verification to audit, and therefore I won't hold an audit. Is that right?
I absolutely intend to hold an audit. I was very clear when we tabled our audit reports on the wage subsidy and the emergency response benefit back in March that was my intention.
When?
I was expecting to do it as soon as their work had begun. As I mentioned, it's impossible to audit something that has not yet been done.
Right.
And so
when do you expect to do the audit, though?
I think that's a question you'll have to ask the Canada Revenue Agency when they will get their work done. I am in continual dialogue with the agency in order to monitor the progress of their work so that we can do it in the most timely way possible.
Well,
because as I mentioned back in March, I think this work is critical and I'm concerned. that
Well,
it has been delayed.
Well, it seems like you're rewarding them for it. So if they don't do their verification job, you won't audit them. I mean, that's just great. I mean, imagine if Canadian taxpayers could do the same thing. They just won't do any of the verification that their own filings are right, and then CRA would never audit them because there's nothing to audit. That's essentially what you're saying. You're giving them a free ride because they haven't done their job. Your audit is of particular value when agencies don't do their job. That's when your audit should occur. But you're telling us that you're going to give them a break precisely because they didn't do their job. Aren't you rewarding bad behavior?
I am very concerned that they have made the decision to delay their work or defer it. And I will continue to be in constant dialogue with them because, as I mentioned back in March, when you delay prepayment controls, post-payment work becomes critical. And I expect that if an individual received public funds in error, that recovery efforts would occur.
Well, but they haven't. We know that now. Basically, this government gave out billions of dollars of checks. We now know that some of it went to criminals, scammers, people not living in Canada, people who received multiple payments in the same week, even though that is not allowed, people who used false identities. But they have not gone back and done verification on any of the recipients now. We're almost 2 years after the CERB program began, and you're rewarding them by not beginning your audit until they're good and ready, which at this pace will be never. Why aren't you? Your job is not to do, quote unquote, dialogue with the agency. Your job is to be the auditor of the agency, to be their watchdog. Why is it that you seem so intent on giving this agency and this government such a free ride in the billions of dollars that was given out to fraudulent applicants?
I believe that, as I mentioned, an audit is of value when there is something there to audit. You need data and information in order to be able to go in. Otherwise, our auditors can't do their job.
Well, you could. Your
so
audit
I am
could.
continuing to apply pressure on Canada Revenue Agency to start the post-payment work because of how critical it is to the success of the payments being made to those who are eligible.
Right. Well, your audit could actually go ahead, and you could publish a report showing that the post-verification of fraudulent recipients never happened. That could be the material that you would publish in an audit. And instead of simply letting the government continue to rag the puck and waste time and reward them for their incompetence by delaying your work. Final question.
That's your time, Mr. Polyev.
Okay. Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Point of order.
I just have here a document I'd like to table here. It's from Blacklock's reporter, and it's entitled Audit Contracts Questioned. The piece says the Commons Public Accounts Committee yesterday questioned the Auditor General's office over favoritism in contracting to a Liberal lobbyist, Susan Smith. MPs did not comment after the committee spent more than an hour behind closed doors questioning Auditor General Karen Hogan. As you know, Mr. Chair, it is not common for independent, nonpartisan officers of Parliament to give untendered contracts to partisan lobbyists.
Point of order.
But we want to have this
Point of order.
table.
This is not a point of order.
Thank you.
Chair, I don't believe this is a point of order.
Yeah, Mr. Polyev, if you'd like to table it, please send it to the clerk. Thank you. We are just before we move to the Liberals for 6 minutes. Just to let you members know that we are trying to get the Canadian Labour Congress through our technical people to be able to link into us, and once they do, if they do, we will give them an opportunity also to make a opening statement. We're now moving to the Liberals, and we have Mr. Baker sharing time also with Ms. Zerowitz. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Baker.
Thank you very much, Chair. I do have a question for you, Ms. Hogan, but before I do, I do need to sort of respond to what was said just a moment ago by Mr. Polyev. I think it's important to note that the CRA has a number of measures in place to ensure that only those who are supposed to receive the supports, whether that be the CERB or whether that be the wage subsidy, receive them. And post-payment verification is one of those. And my recollection, and I could be corrected by my colleagues, but my recollection is that the officials who were here with us last week spoke to the timing of this, and I think they told us that that work was to begin in January. I also want to mention that CRA officials have worked, I believe, incredibly hard during a very difficult time to get these programs out to Canadians during a global crisis, during a pandemic, and that these programs, by delivering that support, has saved businesses from bankruptcies, has protected jobs, has allowed some people to put food on the table that they wouldn't have been able to put on the table otherwise. So to me, it's incredibly disrespectful for Mr. Poilievre to suggest that the CRA officials are not doing their jobs, that they're not working as hard as possible, that they're not able to do their jobs capably, and that's what he was suggesting. I find that really, really disappointing and disrespectful. With that said, Ms. Hogan, I want to thank you for taking the time to be here with us today, and again, I want to echo we appreciate it, especially on short notice. On November 25th of 2020, the National Post published an article called "Tories Ask CRA to Pause Audits of Wage Subsidy Recipients During Pandemic. Experts Say That's a Bad Idea." And that's an article, Chair, that I'll be tabling with this committee. The article quotes two experts in fighting tax-related crimes. One of them, Toby Sanger of Canadians for Tax Fairness, says in the article, and I quote, "CRA should be concerned and empathetic about the plight of small businesses, but to stop all audit programs or simply not proceed with them on a carte blanche basis, I wouldn't agree with that," close quote. And the other expert, Dennis Meunier, the former head of CRA's Criminal Investigation Division, said, quote, "It is the CRA's responsibility to do this pilot project, and I think it's totally unacceptable and irresponsible for political parties to request that a particular sector not be audited. It makes no sense," close quote. So my question to you, Ms. Hogan, is do you agree with the opinions expressed by the experts here regarding the demand that the Conservative Party made regarding stopping wage subsidy audits?
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here. And I would have been here last week when I was originally requested to be invited. But as you may recall, I tabled 4 reports on COVID measures last Thursday and was unable to be at the committee at the same time. So I do believe that audits are a good deterrent and that they're critical when a decision is made to limit post-payment controls and rely on post-payment efforts. I think that audits should be targeted and random, and that every file or every sector or every individual should have the equal opportunity of being subject to an audit. And so you should have some that are targeted based on risks, but that you should also have some that are done randomly. So as it is my job to audit the government, and I have been in the audit field for over 25 years. And so I see the value and the importance and the need for audits.
Thank you. So stopping audits would not be a good idea. Is that fair to say?
Correct. Stopping audits would not be a good idea, and I guess it would make our office not very useful. And I think that we serve Parliament and Canadians and provide very valuable work in helping Parliament hold government to account.
Thank you very much. I'll pass the rest of my time to Mrs. Erlich.
Thank you so
20
much.
seconds.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank the officials for being here today. Thank you so much for being here. It's really important, the work that you do, and really appreciate both your testimony, Ms. Hogan, as well as the officials that are here from the CRA. And we hope that we can get the CLC here as well. I think it's also important, just because it was... it's important to sort of remind ourselves that we are in a pandemic, and much of the emergency supports, well, all of the emergency supports that were sent out, there had to be a balance between getting them out the door while also making sure that we put enough measures in place to ensure that they're getting to where they're supposed to be going. And I guess maybe my first question to you, Ms. Hogan, in your 6th report, specifically the report on CERB, you say, and I quote, "Accepting risks in order to expedite payments to those in need is consistent with best practices promoted by the International Public Sector Fraud Forum and its principles of fraud control in emergency management." So would you say that this principle could apply to the emergency supports that we have sent out the door very quickly?
So you're quoting back to our report on the Canada Emergency Response Benefit Program, and absolutely in that program we recognize that the government applied what were best practices in the international sector when it came to emergency management. Those practices point to the fact that the priority in an emergency should be to get money and services out to those in need. The government did that in a way where they limited some prepayment controls. While there were some automated checks in the two programs that we looked at, the focus was put on post-payment preventative controls. Now, there is a time, however, where you have to do that shift from emergency management to more long-term management, and that you need to start introducing more controls on the preventative side instead of the detect side after the fact. And after 20 odd months in a pandemic, I would expect that the government is starting to adjust and implementing those controls.
And Ms. Hogan, I'm so sorry to interrupt because my time is just about ended, but I just want to point out it is consistent with best practices, and I hope further questions will show that the CRA is looking to start those post-pandemic verifications starting in January 2022, which is just next month. Thank you.
Thank you. And moving over to the block, Monsieur Saint-Marie.
Mr. Sainte-Marie, thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank the guests for their presence, the Auditor General, Mr. Le Goff, and all the high-level officials from the CRA. Thank you so much for your work. It's very important. My first question is for Ms. Hogan. In the last 2 years, or since the pandemic began, a message that we've heard regularly here at the Finance Committee from your predecessors was that your office, the Office of the Auditor General, did not have enough funding to do its job well, to carry out investigations well. What can you tell us? Answer. Thank you very much for the question with regard to funding of our office. As you know, I was appointed in June 2020 to be the Auditor General in the middle of the pandemic. One of the first things I did after my appointment was to update our funding request to the government. We received funding, the funding that we requested. That was an increase of our permanent operating budget of $25 million, and we did indeed receive that money. Question. Great. I'm glad to hear that, because this is something we heard regularly here at the Finance Committee. You play a central role for the Canadian population and for all MPs, so I'm glad to hear this information. In your presentation just now, when it comes to your audits with regard to CERB payments, that is Canada Emergency Response Benefits, you said that your audit had to be carried out later because the Canada Revenue Agency was not able to do its own verifications. Is that what you consider to be the situation? Answer. The post-payment work delays, well, I had expected them to be done by the end of June the end of 2021 rather. And I was to carry out a second set of audits on the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy and the Emergency Response Benefit. However, because the work was delayed, I have not been able to start my work of auditing. This is concerning to me because the post-payment verification work is essential when pre-payment verification work was not properly done. It was important that the CRA thus move forward quickly with this work. Thank you for your answer. In your opinion, and please feel free to answer as you like, do these CRA is it possible that the CRA is not willing to go ahead with these verifications since it might not want to reveal widespread fraud? Or do you think there's a lack of resources in the Canada Revenue Agency, that the CRA is saying, well, we'll use our employees to do other work rather than these checks, these post-payment checks? Or do you think that it's possible simply to a lack of resources at the CRA? The CRA has faced considerable pressure throughout the pandemic to get its job done. How do you analyze this? How do you see this late work? Answer. I think you're truly lucky to have CRA representatives here with you today. I think they should be asked your question. We were told by the CRA that the people assigned to carry out these prepayment checks are continuing to do their work, and they were delayed in starting the post-payment checks. I think you'd be better off asking the CRA directly, however. Thank you very much for your responses, and I'll try to ask the question in a future round of questions. In your discussions, your prior discussions, you raised something that appears crucial to me, both for the CWS and the CERB. At the beginning of the pandemic, everyone, at least in my opinion, was in good faith. It was absolutely necessary to act quickly, and programs such as the CERB were quickly set up and implemented. And we understood that checks would be done after. Of course, there was the question of possible fraud. There needed to be a proper system of checks and balances, but these were postponed. I understand this. During the first months, this was necessary. However, after a few months, I think there should have been checks and balances set up, pre-checks, prepayment checks. Why do you think this was not done? Answer. Once again, I think it's a question that you should ask to the CRA representatives there with you. But you're absolutely right. The current context is not the same context that we were facing at the beginning of the pandemic. If we go back in time to the beginning to March, April, and May 2020, I expect that there will be checks and balances to improve prepayment checks, or a tighter overview of these prepayment checks. That's what I expect to be set up.
Moving to the NDP and Ms. Blaney for 6 minutes.
Well, thank you, Chair, and thank you to everyone for being here today to share your valuable testimony. And of course, I am sad to see that the Canadian Labour Congress is having technical issues and can't be here at this point. But I also respect how important it is to make sure that the interpreters who serve us so well get the sound quality that they require. So if I can come to you, Ms. Hogan. Your office did do an audit on the CERB looking at the period from March 2020 to January 2021, and you released a series of recommendations, including suggestions on what to consider when designing an emergency response benefit. Was your office consulted in the development of the Canada Worker Lockdown Benefit?
So you're correct. We did do 2 audits, one of the Canada Emergency Response Benefit and one of the Canada Wage Subsidy. We looked at the design and the implementation of prepayment controls, and that is where that first audit stopped because it was so early on in the pandemic. So no, we were not consulted in the design of any future programs. It is a fine line, right? You can't really develop the policy or the management processes around it and then come in and audit it, right? We can always provide advice and on good controls, but we also expect that the departments will react and deal with the recommendations that we gave in previous audits and consider those as they design new programs and put in new controls to deliver them.
So just for a little bit more clarity, do you feel that your recommendations on previous pandemic income support benefits were applied in this latest piece of legislation around the specific benefits? Or advice maybe is a better word to use.
Well, I don't really know all of the details of the bill. I did look at the summary and read parts of it, and I guess I did not notice that there was a request when it came to the extension of the wage subsidy to see that there would be advancement to ask for the social insurance number of employees linked to that. That was one of our concerns. And so I would expect that perhaps that was considered and I just didn't see it in the bill, but that would be one example of where we did not see our recommendation acted on.
Okay, that's very interesting. So let's step back to the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy. You've been talking about that. You did release a series of findings and implications, one of which was that without effective controls for validating payments, the integrity of the program is at risk and eligible employers might receive the subsidy. So I think this is an important factor to consider, and I appreciate what you just said about the social insurance numbers. So given the amount of public attention on the cost of the pandemic recovery and how the government is going to pay for it, I'm wondering again if your office was consulted at all about the executive compensation components within C2 and if you feel those provisions address the concerns that you mentioned in your report.
So as I mentioned, I don't know all the details. I know that there was an inclusion about executive compensation, but sadly, I don't know the details of that. I'm sorry. And as I mentioned previously, we were not consulted in the design of the new measures or the policy to which you are studying.
So I'm just wondering, I know that you're newer to this position, but is there any history of consultation? Because it seems to me that we're dealing with a lot of significant ramification, which is allowing members from either party to, or any of the parties to sort of lay blame at the feet of some people and hide other people. It's starting to seem concerning to me that that's sort of the next steps. I'm just wondering, is there any role historically of the government actually consulting about what would be the best methodology moving forward to sort of stop these kind of political fights that really can have an impact on people in their communities?
That is a great question. Well, I am new to the role. I have been in the office about 15 years, and I must admit that I don't know whether or not our office has been consulted in other development of policies in the past. I do know that we have provided advice on controls. Many of our audits do comment on gaps in policy when we look at the implementation, whether it's done effectively of a policy. But as I mentioned, you do need to be cautious about being too involved up front and doing management work when then you're going to come in and audit, right? That's not our domain. Our domain is to audit the implementation of a policy and not to create the policy.
And hopefully have a government that listens to those audits so that the future is a better place for us all. So I know I only have a few seconds, but you talked about earlier about sort of best practices. Do you feel that the steps being taken in this new piece of legislation follow any of those best practices internationally? And I leave it at that.
Well, I agree with your statement that the government needs to act on the recommendations in our reports and that they need to put their action plans in place in a timely way, which includes making sure that they're properly resourced in order to carry that out. When I referenced international best practices, that had to do with emergency situations, and that was that finding that right balance between the speed of delivery of information, of money and support, and the controls. But I do believe after 20 odd months in a pandemic, it's time to start transitioning away from emergency management to more long-term focus and improving the controls that are there pre-payment.
Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Blaney. That's your time. We are moving into our second round, and we have the Conservatives for 5 minutes. I understand there would be a splitting of time. Mr. Polyev and Mr. Stewart.
Ms. Hogan ironically said stopping audits would not be a good idea when asked about small businesses being audited. And now she's stopping her audit of the agency's verification of CERB recipients. So my question will be for CRA, whoever wants to answer it. The Auditor General has agreed to delay her audit into CRA's verifications of CERB abuses because CRA hasn't done any such verifications almost 2 years after the program began. So there's someone here from CRA that can answer this. The Auditor General is being very generous with you over at CRA. I wonder if you apply the same rules to the people you audit. Now, if a small business says to CRA that it has done no documentation or verification of its transactions, then presumably you'd have nothing to audit. Would you do for that small business what the Auditor General is doing for you and just say, don't worry, we're not going to audit you because there's nothing to audit, and we'll give you a free ride? Is that what CRA would do if it were in the same situation dealing with a small business filer as the Auditor General is in with the CRA right now?
Speaker, if you'll allow, this is Marc Lemieux. I'll answer to the question. Indeed, last year, when we began audits for small businesses, we were flexible. We extended deadlines so that businesses could respond. We recognized that it was a pandemic situation and we needed to be flexible in our approach towards SMEs. We also took the necessary means, Mr. Lemieux, to take into account what they could provide.
I understand that during the height of the pandemic and the lockdowns, we were in extraordinary circumstances. We're now almost 2 years into the CERB program. So I'm not asking about what extenuating circumstances you might have granted during that time. I'm asking about the present. A small business says, we just haven't done any verification of our work or documentation. Do you then say, no problem, we won't bother with the audit because you have no documentation for us to audit? In the present.
Currently, we are continuing, Mr. Chair, to check these programs, check these verifications. We are working with large and small companies to carry out our verifications.
Complete audits now of small businesses, even if they haven't got their verification and documentation order. So you're not granting the same flexibility today with small businesses that the Auditor General is granting to you. Back to the Auditor General. This article from Blacklock's reporter says, and I quote, internal records showed Smith, who's a Liberal lobbyist, was given privileged access to federal audits months before they were disclosed to MPs, senators, or the public. Quote, I'll send you the PDFs one staffer
Point of order,
wrote.
Mr. Chair.
Smith.
What's the relevance to this bill? C2, sorry. What's the relevance?
Thank you. I'm getting to that.
Yes.
Thank you. Furthermore, it says that way you can access them from your office. Madam Auditor General, is it in fact true that this Liberal lobbyist got access to your federal audits before members of Parliament?
Again, point of order. What's relevant to C2?
Yep. So that's for the Auditor General.
No, but what's the relevance of the question to C2?
It's a political question.
Yeah, we're actually, you know what the people around this table are called?
We are politicians.
They're called politicians.
Mr.
So there are
but the-
political
but the-
questions when politicians
The
speak.
officials are not politicians.
Yeah,
Mr.
I'm
Polyev.
asking about her office. This is her office. And her office is supposed to be apolitical, despite this contract to a Liberal lobbyist. So the question I have for the Auditor General is whether or not that in fact happened.
Relevant to C2.
It is relevant.
How is it relevant, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Point of order. What's
Point
the
of order.
relevance to C2?
The relevance to C2, Mr. Polyev.
Well, because the Auditor General is going to have to scrutinize the spending, and if she's presenting audits to Liberal lobbyists before they get to parliamentary committees, we don't know whether those audits are going to be impartial and apolitical, as you've suggested they should be. So that's the relevant.
Yeah. Now, Mr. Polyev, again, it is a political question. We are politicians, but the officials are not politicians.
Yeah,
So
but that's why it's so concerning that that her office is hiring a Liberal lobbyist to preview audits before they get published. And that's the point of my question. So if the Auditor General could please answer that question, I'd appreciate it.
Mr. Chair,
Ms.
would you like
Hogan?
me to proceed?
Ms. Hogan, yes.
So the contract in question is one that's given to media coaches that prepare myself and other senior officials with in my office as we prepare for releasing and tabling reports. That audit is finalized and completely done, and we ensure that we have points of views that represent all political parties and all different interests across the country.
Right, but if I could, sorry, it's just
the question
was very specific.
I apologize. The time is actually up, Mr. Polyev.
Point of
We've gone
order,
actually
point of
well
order,
beyond
Mr. Chair.
time. Yes.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Point of order.
We're going to have to get straight how it works here. You don't get to decide what I get to say.
No, I'm not.
Let me be clear. Let me be clear. Let me be clear. You are a servant of the committee. You are not the committee's master. And you will not censor what members say on this committee or the questions that they ask.
Point of order.
Is that clear?
Point of order,
Mr.
Mr. Chair.
I'm just asking if it's
we
clear to you.
agreed on timings, and your time is well past the time.
Right, because you interrupted me multiple times to try and censor my questions.
That was taken into account, Mr.
Yeah.
Polyev. Yes.
Well, let's make sure it doesn't happen again.
That was
because
taken
my
into
time
Mr. Polyev,
belongs to
point of
me.
order.
Point of order.
It does not.
Point of
Excuse
order.
me. Excuse me. I have the floor. Point of order.
Point of order.
Point of
The
order,
chair has
Mr. Chair.
acknowledged me, Mr. Polyev.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. Point of order, Mr. Chair.
I have the right to have
Point of
the
order, Mr. Chair.
I have the
Point
right
of
to
order,
the
Mr.
floor.
Chair.
Point of
Point of
order.
order, Mr. Chair.
Point of order.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Point
of order.
Point of order, Mr. Polyev.
Yes. So my question was whether it is clear to you now that my time is my time and that nothing I say will be censored by you. Is that clear to you?
Point of order, Mr. Baker.
This is not the place for this. This is not a point of order, number one. Number two, it's incredibly unfair to you, Mr. Chair, and to our witnesses who are waiting to be asked questions. We should be dedicating the time there. And number three, if Mr. Polyev has concerns about how you're leading the meeting, he can speak to you after the meeting and discuss it, not on the witnesses' time, not on the members' time, and not on the public's time.
Point of order, Mr. Stewart.
The members of this committee are not here to be censored by the chair. We're here to ask questions. We have that right as elected officials. And this is just another example of liberal censorship. And everybody watching at home is going to realize that.
Mr. Stewart, it's about timing. We went well beyond the time that the Conservatives had. Well beyond the time is what I can tell you. And that is, we are now moving to, we've had the Conservatives, I think we have next up, we have the Liberals, and we've got Madame Châtel for 5 minutes. Oh, wait, sorry, Clerk, you said that we did have, yes, we do have the Canadian Labour Congress, the technicians have worked their wonders, and the Canadian Labour Congress would like to just provide a statement to the committee. So we'll have first the Canadian Labour Congress and then over to Madame Châtel.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, committee members. My name is Bea Brusk, and I am the President of the Canadian Labour Congress. The CLC is Canada's largest central labour body, speaking on issues of national importance to all working people in Canada. Since the early days of the COVID-19 outbreak, the Government of Canada had committed to doing whatever it takes for as long as it takes to get Canadians through the pandemic. The government has consistently said that no matter how much longer the crisis lasts and no matter where you live, we've got your back. Despite this, back in October, the government announced it would be terminating the Canada Recovery Benefit. It did so in the midst of the pandemic, and it did so before the labour market had fully recovered. It did so with no system of unemployment benefits in place for vulnerable workers who cannot access EI. The pandemic is far from over. Today, the number of daily COVID-19 cases is 135,000 higher than when government announced that it was ending the CRB. Many Canadians continue to struggle with joblessness and underemployment. In November, there were 1.2 million Canadians who were officially out of work, and another 630,000 working people wanted full-time work but couldn't find it. Statistics Canada's labour underutilization rate captures the full range of people who are available and who want to work. In November, the labour underutilization rate was 12.4%. In other words, 12.4% of the potential labour force was either unemployed, not participating in the labour force but wanting to work, or employed but receiving far fewer than their usual hours of work. When the government decided to end the CRB, the official jobless rate was still a full percentage point higher than in February of 2020. Total hours worked were below their pre-pandemic levels, and one labor market indicator had recovered to the pre-pandemic levels, and of course that was the labor force participation. In other words, in our mind, there is little evidence of people staying at home on CRB benefits rather than taking part in working or looking for employment. And many CRB recipients are in fact, or were in fact, working while they were receiving those benefits as the CRB permitted them to do. They relied on those benefits to cope with insufficient hours of work and with reduced earnings. In the period just before the government's decision to terminate the CRB, 970,000 Canadians received it. And in the final eligibility period, there were still over 600,000 CRB recipients. And the number continues to climb as workers retroactively claim those CRB benefits. So let's be clear, the Canada Recovery Lockdown Benefit is not a substitute for the Canada Recovery benefits that workers continue to need. The restrictive benefit may never be used or used very sparingly because last Tuesday we heard this committee, and this committee heard from government officials who were unable to identify a single instance between the announcement of the benefit on October 21st and now where the lockdown benefit would apply. And we still haven't heard how much the lockdown benefit is expected to cost, possibly maybe because the actual cost would be negligible or perhaps even zero. It's doubtful the lockdown benefit would help families in places like Alberta, where the government has dragged its feet on putting lockdowns in place despite the widespread risk of COVID. As a regional benefit, the lockdown benefit is not designed to respond to workplace outbreaks like the ones that we've seen at Cargill, at Amazon, and at Canada Post. Honourable members, the decision to terminate the CRB, pulling the rug out from under struggling workers, self-employed workers, and hard-hit hospitality and tourism, they've relied very heavily on the CRB. And in contrast, the measures in Part 1 of Bill C2, extending the emergency wage subsidy and the emergency rent subsidy to the tourism and hospitality sectors, will do very little for those workers. We recommend urgently restoring the CRB benefits for workers who cannot access employment insurance, and we also recommend several amendments to improve the lockdown benefit, which I'd be pleased to detail for you if there's an opportunity. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Bruskin. We're glad we got you on still today. We do have one last questioner. It's going to go to the Liberals and Madame Chatel for 5 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. This question is for the Canada Revenue Agency. Last March, the Auditor General recommended to the CRA that it complete and implement its post-payment verification plan with regard to CERB. Without going into details, could you please tell us a bit more on exactly what this important work is, what has been done by the CRA? I'll take the question, Chair. The Chair continued to develop its verification program using the available information. However, this verification plan was always a work in progress that took the pandemic into account and also the possibility of being able to carry out verifications or audits. As the Auditor General recommended, we should actually do verifications pre-payment. So that's what the CRA was actually doing. It postponed post-payment checks to be able to ensure that pre-payment audits were done of people who were applying for assistance. That's what we've been doing in the last year. In the Auditor General's report at paragraph 6, that there were efforts made to block people who had high-risk transactions. We suspected fraud. We continue to carry out this work. There were 141,000 accounts that were blocked. We placed a lot of attention on them. And we have since carried out work on over 580,000 accounts. That's why we are delayed in our post-payment checks, because we were doing prepayment checks before paying out monies to applicants. I think it's important for the CRA to reiterate, as it did Friday, that we have information on payments that were made, and we fully intend to do post-payment verifications to ensure that there was no fraud, that the amounts that were paid out were indeed paid out to eligible applicants or businesses. Thank you very much, Mr. Lemieux. That is perfectly sensible to me to hear that we have solid verifications being done beforehand to do less work after, post-payment, in other words. If our systems are good to begin with, then there's less work to do later on. So I congratulate you for that work. Despite what my opposition colleagues claim, emergency programs that include automated or manual pre- and post-payments, post-payment checks, allowed the CRA to block thousands of suspect demand or applications, rather. Can you tell us more about that? Answer. We use all data that's available to us to determine which transactions could be suspicious or simply ineligible. We follow up by asking for confirmations from people. They have to confirm their identity, for example. And if we think there's a case of ineligibility, we ask for the applicant to call us, and we go through their information to check their eligibility. We saw that the programs evolved as they were renewed, and some factors changed, allowing us to do automatic verifications. For example, we asked Canadians who applied to fill out their tax return and send it in on time before that they could be approved for a payment. If the tax return was not sent in, then there could be additional delays. The law changed with time, and now the law says that we are allowed to check that people did indeed fill out and send in their tax returns. That allows us to use automatic checks to verify information. Thank
you, Monsieur Lemieux. That is the end of our time. This is going to conclude our meeting number 8. We do want to thank all of our witnesses, the Auditor General, Ms. Hogan, Labour Congress.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, point of order.
Point of order.
I think the meeting started at 11:10. Or 12:10. Pardon me. I think we got another 10 minutes.
We were scheduled to go to 1.
We were scheduled to go for an hour.
I don't think it was an hour. I think it was 1. The clerk. It's 1 o'clock. It is 1 o'clock. Yeah, if members would like to go a little bit over, I was just thanking the witnesses for their time.
Yes, please. Can we keep the witnesses for another 10 minutes, please? Get the full hour that we planned in here.
Members, I'm looking for unanimous consent to that. And witnesses, I don't know what their timing is like. Available? Okay, we will go for another 10 minutes. We will split that up about 2 minutes each. Okay. So will that be everybody? Yeah, 2 minutes each. Go ahead. Yep, Mr. We had just finished with the Liberals, so we're going to give each 2 minutes. We can start with the Conservatives. Go ahead for 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep, Mr. Chambers.
We only have 2 minutes here. We are very appreciative of the work of officials, of course, and we do acknowledge everyone works hard. I think the issue is when we have information presented to the committee and testimony, basically almost like a whistleblower report, and there's really been no material changes to the controls, either upfront or post-payment verification. For the Auditor General, are you not concerned that there have been no material changes to the controls that we've seen to administer these benefit programs as we have done the previous ones. We're not in the same kind of time-sensitive measure as we were 18 months ago.
Absolutely. As I mentioned previously, I am concerned that there needs to be a shift from that sort of emergency planning reactive mode to one that's got a more long-term focus. I would expect to see adjustments and improvements to controls prepayment, and that the post-payment work would begin as soon as possible.
Thank you very much. Final question, perhaps. We saw about 440,000 taxpayers that were ineligible for CERB. They received a tax amnesty. Can we calculate how much money the government has not recovered from those individuals? And do we have a sum of that number for CRA officials?
Mr. Chair, I don't. I need more information. I don't know about what amnesty we are talking here.
My understanding is we sent 440,000 letters to taxpayers who were ineligible for CERB at the end of last year. We then sent them another letter that said, "Don't worry about paying that money back." My question is, how much money did we forego recovering?
Mr. Chair, to my knowledge, we never sent a second letter to those individuals. The first letter was to ask the recipients of that letter to validate their eligibility, because the agency had information on file showing that they may not be eligible. And that letter did not ask them to reimburse at that time. It was an education letter so that people really considered the criteria of the program and their eligibility moving forward.
Thank you, Monsieur Lemieux. That's the time. We're moving to the bloc. Monsieur Sainte-Marie.
Mr. Sainte-Marie from the bloc. Thank you, Chair. I'm a bit mixed up with this new order of speaking.
Très bien, c'est clair. Merci.
Very well. That's clear. Thank you, Chair. I'll re-ask my question of Ms. Hogan. Mr. Poilievre has already asked it, and I'll explain why. What is the link with C2? C2 is asking us, legislators, to vote in favor of a bill worth several $billion. Since the aid programs concern large figures. We therefore have to have absolute confidence in the government and the various institutions whose role it is to check the work of the government. Ms. Hogan, so I will therefore go back to Mr. Poilievre's question. Did you present, or did your office present these audits, your audits, to the lobbyists in question before they were presented to the House of Commons? Answer. All contracts that we award to suppliers to help us carry out our work, that is tabling of audits, contain confidentiality clauses. We don't have any reason to believe that these clauses were not complied with. We meet with people who have various angles. We meet with the Conservatives, the Bloc, with all the parties to be able to consider the views of all Canadians when we are preparing to submit a report. This is simply to help us prepare for the day we table them in Parliament. Thank you. You've answered my question. You understand the importance of having the utmost confidence in the institutions that serve the House, especially when it comes to programs that involve such vast sums of money. Thank you very much. I have no further questions. Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all witnesses for your presence here today.
And over to Ms. Blaney for a couple of minutes.
Well, thank you, Chair, and I'd like to come back to the CLC. Thank you so much for working so hard to participate today. When the government announced the cancellation of the Canada Recovery Benefit, they also announced that they would be creating a new set of income support benefits for workers that would be available retroactively. Could you enlighten the committee if you believe any of your members would qualify for the Canada Worker Lockdown Benefit between October the 24th and today?
Thank you for that. While we welcome any types of new benefits, our concern with the benefits proposed under C2 is the application as to whether or not workers would actually qualify for those benefits. And so what we're worried about is that when there are outbreaks in various different parts of the country, and that may be workplace specific, where workers do not have access to things like paid sick time, they will also not have access to this benefit based on the fact that there isn't an actual lockdown being noted for that particular region. And that is going to leave workers significantly short. Outside of that, the other concern that we have is that even if workers, if employers may not necessarily qualify under the hospitality benefits, for example, because they may not have lost 40% of their business or more. However, workers may have lost a shift or two during that week. And for a worker to miss a fifth of their paycheck, that's a fairly significant chunk that they have to navigate and negotiate in terms of how they make their rent check and how they put those groceries on the table. And so we are concerned that those benefits don't go nearly far enough.
Well, thank you for that. And I'm just wondering, the Canadian Labour Congress is one of the largest umbrella organizations representing workers in this whole country. I'm just wondering if you were consulted at all in the development of the pandemic income support benefits for workers.
So we were not directly consulted. However, there were some discussions that were had with us, some phone calls in terms of, this benefit is going to be coming, but not really an opportunity to provide any significant input into how that would be designed.
Thank you, Ms. Blaney. That's the time. And now we're moving to Mr. McDonald for the last 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Just I want to go back to post-payment relative to CRA, and the recommendations that were made by the Auditor General was basically I want to see if it coexists with their planned start date of the verification, and I wanted to ask if it's in January of 2022.
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure who the question is for.
So basically, you've indicated that your post-pandemic evaluations will be done in January 2022. Is that correct? Started.
What we indicated is that we will begin our post-verification on CERB in January of 2022.
Can you quickly elaborate what your intentions are to do those checks and verifications?
Based on the information that we have, we will establish risk profiles, and we will audit the transactions that appear to be more risky in terms of eligibility or fraud.
So in saying that, you've already done some pre-checks relative to working with financial institutions, the RCMP, FinTrack, and so on and so forth. How do those numbers compare with the issues that you may see at the end of the post-transactions evaluations? Possibly.
Mr. Chair, it's difficult unless we've started to conclude on the number and the relative size of what we would find versus what we've put in place in terms of pre-validation on suspect transactions.
Thank you.
And I would just say that, it's in the report of the Auditor General that when you look at the report, paragraph 6.59, we've added additional measure on suspect transactions as early as of May 11, 2020.
Thank you.
We've always added.
Thank you, Monsieur Lemieux. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. That does conclude our meeting number 8. Again, I would like to thank all of our witnesses for coming before us. Thank you for your answers. Thank you for your hard work and public service. And on behalf of the committee and the committee members and all of the staff here, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.